I couldn't believe what I was seeing. There, glowing on my father's phone screen, was a group chat I'd never seen before. A group called Real Family. And I wasn't in it. My brothers were, my dad was, my uncle was. But me? I'd been cut out, erased, like I never existed. The truth hit me all at once, cold and sharp. They'd been planning something behind my back, something big. And the worst part? They didn't even think I was worth telling. I thought I knew my place in this family. I thought loyalty, love, and blood meant something. But what I found in those messages, what I discovered buried in legal documents and whispered conversations, exposed a betrayal so shocking, so calculated, that it didn't just break my heart. It shattered the illusion that family means unconditional. They lied. They cheated me out of what was mine. They humiliated me in silence, mocked my worth, and shamed me without ever saying it to my face. But here's the thing about being underestimated. It gives you power. And what happened next wasn't just revenge. It was justice. Cold, strategic, and undeniable. They thought I'd disappear quietly. They thought wrong. At the time, I didn't know how exactly everything would unfold. I only knew that moment would change everything. I was sitting on the couch, scrolling through my dead phone, feeling that familiar pang of frustration. My battery had died right in the middle of texting a friend, and Dad's phone was just sitting there on the coffee table while he showered upstairs. I didn't think twice. I'd borrowed it 100 times before. But the second I unlocked it, a notification popped up that made my stomach drop. A group chat called Real Family. Real Family. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, because my name, my actual name, wasn't anywhere in that chat. My hands started shaking as I opened it. There they were. Dad, my brothers Ryan and Marcus, and Uncle Joe, all talking like I didn't exist. They were discussing numbers, something about splitting funds, and the words just kept hitting me like punches. 250,000 each, Marcus wrote. That's the plan, right? Dad replied with a thumbs up. Then Ryan added the line that made my blood run cold. Don't tell Harper. She'll just make it all about her and create drama. Drama. That's what I was to them. Not family. Not worth including. Just drama. I scrolled up, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might break through my chest. Weeks of messages. Months, maybe. They'd been planning this behind my back the entire time, talking about investments, estate planning, who gets what. The trust fund our grandmother left was being carved up 3 ways, and I was being erased like I never mattered. The betrayal wasn't just financial. It was existential. They'd literally created a group called Real Family and decided I wasn't part of it. I felt humiliated, shamed, like everything I thought I knew about my place in this family was a lie. I sat there frozen, staring at the screen, trying to process what this meant. Was this payback for something? Had I done something so terrible that I deserved to be backstabbed like this? Or was it simpler? Was I just never as valuable to them because I wasn't one of the boys? The infidelity of it all wasn't romantic, but it was just as cutting. They'd cheated me out of my birthright, lied to my face every Sunday dinner, every holiday, every moment I thought we were whole. The truth was staring at me in blue and gray text bubbles, and I couldn't unsee it. I heard the water shut off upstairs. Dad would be down any minute. I put the phone back exactly where it was, screen down, and walked to the kitchen like nothing happened. But inside, something had shifted. I wasn't going to cry, wasn't going to confront them and beg for explanations. No, this required something different. This required proof, strategy, and a plan. Because if they thought I was just going to accept being erased, they clearly didn't know me at all. And what I found next would confirm that this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was intentional, calculated, and documented. The next morning, I walked into our family's company, Bradford Medical Supplies, like I did every weekday for the past 6 years. I smiled at the receptionist, grabbed my coffee, and settled into my desk in the operations department. But today wasn't a normal day. Today, I had a mission. Dad's office was on the third floor, and I knew his habits better than anyone. Tuesday mornings, he had vendor calls from 9 to 11, and his assistant Sharon took early lunch. That gave me a window, and I was going to take it. I climbed the stairs with a folder in hand, playing the part of the dutiful daughter employee who needed to check something for a client. His office door was unlocked. I slipped inside, my pulse racing, and went straight to his computer. He never logged out. Classic boomer move. I opened his documents folder and typed one word into the search bar. Trust. And there it was. The Bradford Family Trust Amendment, dated 8 months ago. My hands were trembling so badly I almost couldn't click it. But I did. And when it opened, I felt the ground fall out from under me. The original trust document was attached for reference. 4 children, 25% each. Clean, equal, fair. But the amended version told a completely different story. Ryan, 33%. Marcus, 33%. Uncle Joe's son, Connor, who I barely even saw anymore, 34%. And me, Harper Bradford? 0. A flat, cold, humiliating 0. There were no explanations, no clauses about misconduct or estrangement. Just a clean surgical cut, removing me from the family's financial future like I was a tumor. The shocking part wasn't just the number. It was how official it looked, how final, how much planning had gone into my erasure. I took photos of everything. Every page, every signature, every date. This wasn't some draft or idea they were tossing around. This was filed, notarized, legal. They hadn't just talked about cutting me out. They'd actually done it. And they'd done it while smiling at me over Christmas dinner, while asking me to cover extra shifts, while pretending I was still part of the team. The betrayal was so complete, so airtight, that I felt something inside me snap. Not into sadness, into clarity. They wanted me gone? Fine. But they weren't going to do it quietly, and they weren't going to do it without consequences. I logged out, wiped the keyboard, and left Dad's office exactly as I'd found it. Downstairs, I sat at my desk and stared at my phone, at those photos, at the cold proof of my family's backstabbing. Most people would have confronted them. Most people would have screamed, cried, demanded answers, tried to guilt them into changing their minds. But I wasn't most people. I'd spent 6 years learning this business from the inside out, and I knew something they didn't. I was more valuable than they realized. The question wasn't whether I'd been wronged. The question was what I was going to do about it. And for that, I needed someone who dealt in facts, not feelings. I called Diane Mitchell that afternoon. She was a lawyer, sharp as a blade, and one of the few people my late mother had trusted completely. We met at a cafe 2 blocks from my apartment, and I didn't waste time with small talk. I slid my phone across the table, photos of the trust amendment glowing on the screen, and watched her face shift from curious to grim. She scrolled slowly, her jaw tightening with every swipe. When she finally looked up, she said the words I already knew were coming. This is legal. Airtight, actually. Your father had every right to amend the trust however he wanted. I nodded. I wasn't there to contest it. I wasn't there to beg her to find a loophole or start a lawsuit that would drag on for years and cost me everything. I was there to confirm what I suspected, that I had 0 legal recourse, that hoping they'd change their minds was delusional, and that any shred of dignity I had left depended on me walking away on my own terms. Diane leaned back, studying me. "So what are you going to do?" she asked. I smiled, and it wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who'd just accepted that revenge wasn't about screaming. It was about winning. "I'm going to leave," I said. But not quietly. Not empty-handed. I told her about Bradford Medical, about the vendors I managed, the relationships I'd built, the clients who called me directly because they trusted me more than they trusted my brothers. I told her I wanted to start my own distribution company, that I wanted to do it legally, cleanly, and strategically. Diane didn't blink. She pulled out a notepad and started asking questions. Non-compete clauses, intellectual property, client poaching laws. We spent 2 hours mapping out every risk, every move, every word I'd need to say when the time came. Bradford had never enforced a non-compete, and mine had expired years ago anyway. She didn't try to talk me out of it. She just made sure I wouldn't get destroyed in the process. By the time I left that cafe, I had a roadmap. Diane agreed to help me set up the business framework, draft contracts, and review everything I did to make sure I stayed on the right side of the law. This wasn't going to be some impulsive act of vengeance fueled by emotion. This was going to be calculated, methodical, and devastating. My family had made their choice, and they'd documented it in legal language that couldn't be undone. Now it was my turn. They thought I'd create drama? They had no idea what I was actually capable of. And the best part? I wasn't breaking a single rule. I walked back to my apartment that evening with a strange sense of calm. The grief was still there, buried under layers of anger and disbelief, but it wasn't controlling me anymore. I thought about my mom, about how she would have reacted if she'd known what Dad was planning. She'd raised me to stand up for myself, to value my worth, to never let anyone, family or not, treat me like I was disposable. This wasn't just about money. This was about dignity, about reclaiming the self-worth they'd tried to strip away. And if justice meant building something better than Bradford Medical and watching them realize too late what they'd lost, then so be it. The next phase was simple. I had to lay the groundwork without them noticing, and it started with a single phone call to someone I knew could change everything. His name was Trevor, and he ran one of the biggest medical supply distributors in Vancouver. Bradford Medical had been doing business with him for years, but the relationship had always been rocky. My brothers treated him like he was lucky to work with us, and Dad never returned his calls on time. I, on the other hand, had always made an effort. I answered his emails within the hour, fixed shipping errors before they became problems, and once stayed late on a Friday to expedite an order for one of his biggest clients. Trevor remembered that. So when I called him and said I needed advice on a potential partnership opportunity, he didn't hesitate. We set up a video call for that weekend. I didn't tell him I was planning to leave Bradford. Not yet. Instead, I framed it as a hypothetical. If someone wanted to start a regional medical supply company focused on smaller clinics and private practices, what would they need? Trevor lit up. He'd been frustrated with Bradford's approach for years. Our focus on big hospital contracts meant we ignored the smaller players, the ones who were loyal, steady, and desperate for better service. He walked me through supplier relationships, logistics, pricing models, and even offered to connect me with manufacturers who were tired of Bradford's arrogance. By the end of the call, I had a foundation, and Trevor had no idea he'd just helped me build a weapon. Over the next 2 months, I played the role of the perfect employee. I showed up early, stayed late, smiled at family dinners, and acted like nothing had changed. But behind the scenes, I was moving pieces into place. I reached out to contacts I'd built over the years, warehouse managers, sales reps, clinic administrators, and started planting seeds. "I'm thinking about consulting on the side," I'd say casually. "Would you be interested in working with someone who could offer more flexibility than the big companies?" Most of them said yes. They didn't know I was talking about myself, about a company that didn't exist yet. But they would. I rented a small office space under an LLC I'd created with Diane's help. I called it Cascade Supply Partners. The name was intentional, fresh, clean, and nothing like Bradford. I hired 2 people I trusted, an operations manager named Kelly, who'd been overlooked for promotion at Bradford 3 times, and a sales lead named Marcus, not my brother, just an unfortunate coincidence, who was hungry and believed in what I was building. We started quiet. No big announcements, no flashy website, just steady, deliberate moves. We reached out to smaller clinics that Bradford had deprioritized, offered better pricing and faster turnaround times, and built a reputation 1 contract at a time. They had no idea a storm was coming. By month 3, Cascade had locked in 12 clients. Small ones, sure, but loyal. I was still working at Bradford, still pretending everything was fine, but every day I was there felt like a countdown. My brothers walked past my desk talking about the trust fund, about their plans for expansion, about how Dad was going to officially hand over control to them soon. They didn't see me as competition. They barely saw me at all. That was their first mistake. The second was assuming that loyalty was unconditional, that I'd just fade away quietly and let them win. But I wasn't fading. I was preparing. And when I finally made my move, it would be too late for them to stop me. I quit on a Wednesday. No dramatic speech, no tears, no begging for answers about the trust fund. I walked into my father's office, placed a printed resignation letter on his desk, and said, "I'm leaving Bradford Medical. My last day is in 2 weeks. Thank you for the opportunity." He looked up, confused, maybe even a little annoyed. "What are you talking about? Did something happen?" I smiled. The same smile I'd been practicing for months. "I just think it's time for me to explore other options." He didn't fight me. He just nodded, muttered something about respecting my decision, and went back to his emails. That was it. 6 years of my life, dismissed in 30 seconds. But that was fine. I'd already moved on. The first week after I left, nothing happened. Radio silence. I worked full-time at Cascade, onboarding new clients, refining our processes, and expanding our supplier network. Kelly and Marcus were thriving. We were nimble, responsive, and hungry in a way Bradford hadn't been in years. Then, on day 9, my phone exploded. Text after text from Ryan. "What the hell is Cascade Supply Partners? Did you seriously start a competing company? You can't do this, Harper. This is a betrayal." I stared at the messages and felt nothing. Betrayal. That word coming from him was almost funny. Almost. Dad called next, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. "We need to talk. Now." I met him at his office, and the second I walked in, I knew they'd done their homework. Ryan was there, Marcus too, both of them glaring at me like I'd committed a crime. Dad threw a folder across the desk. Inside were printouts, our website, our client list, partnerships I'd formed. "You stole from us," Ryan said, his voice shaking. I laughed. Actually laughed. "I didn't steal anything. I built relationships. I provided better service. That's called competition, not theft. You should try it sometime." The accusations came fast. I'd violated some imaginary loyalty code. I was ungrateful. I was destroying the family legacy. Uncle Joe even chimed in over speakerphone, calling me selfish and vindictive. I let them talk. I let them vent and rage and threaten legal action they'd never follow through on. And when they were done, I pulled out my phone and opened the photos I'd taken months ago. The trust amendment, the group chat. Real family. I didn't show them. I just held the phone, letting the weight of it sit in the air. "You cut me out," I said quietly. "You decided I wasn't family. So I left. And now you're mad because I'm better at this than you thought I'd be." The room went silent. Dad's face turned red. Ryan looked away. Marcus tried to argue, but his voice cracked halfway through. They hadn't expected me to know. They hadn't expected me to care. And they definitely hadn't expected me to win. I stood up, smoothed my jacket, and walked to the door. "If you want to compete, compete," I said. "But don't call me disloyal when you wrote me out of the family first. I'm just playing the game you started." I didn't wait for a response. I didn't need one. Because the truth was already spreading through the industry, and Cascade Supply Partners was just getting started. The real payback wasn't the argument. It was what came next. 6 months later, Bradford Medical was hemorrhaging. Clients who'd been with them for decades started switching to Cascade, drawn by better pricing, faster delivery, and actual customer service. Trevor in Vancouver became one of our biggest partners, feeding us connections across the Pacific Northwest. Clinics that Bradford had ignored for years became our foundation. We weren't just surviving, we were thriving. Meanwhile, my brothers were scrambling, cutting prices they couldn't afford, making promises they couldn't keep, and slowly watching their empire crumble. Dad tried to reach out once. A voicemail, stiff and awkward, asking if we could talk things through. I deleted it. Ryan sent an email, something about family coming first, and how we should work together instead of against each other. I archived it without responding. They didn't want reconciliation. They wanted me to stop winning. They wanted me to fold, to come crawling back, to prove that I needed them more than they needed me. But I didn't. Cascade had 15 employees now, a warehouse, and a client base that was growing every quarter. I didn't need Bradford. I never had. I'd just been too loyal to see it before. The final blow came when Bradford Medical filed for bankruptcy. I heard about it through industry contacts before the official announcement went public. 18 months after I left, the company my grandfather built, the one my father had poured his life into, was done. The trust fund they'd fought so hard to keep from me, gone. Dissolved to pay creditors. The real family group chat must have been real quiet after that. I didn't gloat. I didn't send a message or make a call. I just kept working, kept building, kept proving that the best revenge wasn't destroying them. It was succeeding without them. People ask me sometimes if I feel guilty, if I regret how things turned out, if I wish I'd tried harder to fix the relationship instead of burning it down. The answer is no. Not even a little. They made a choice when they amended that trust, when they created that group chat, when they decided I wasn't worth including. I just made a choice too. I chose my dignity. I chose my self-worth. I chose to stop waiting for people who saw me as disposable to suddenly see me as valuable. And in doing that, I found something better than family. I found respect. I found justice. And I found out exactly what I was capable of when I stopped asking for permission to matter. Cascade Supply Partners is worth more now than Bradford Medical ever was. We've expanded into 3 states, partnered with manufacturers overseas, and built a reputation for integrity that my family never managed. I see my brothers sometimes, at industry events, and they don't make eye contact. Dad retired to Arizona, and we haven't spoken in over a year. Uncle Joe sent a LinkedIn request once. I ignored it. The group chat probably still exists somewhere, but I'm not in it. I never was. And honestly, I don't want to be. Because the real family I built, my team, my clients, the people who believed in me when it mattered, that's worth more than blood ever was. They thought excluding me would be my end. Turns out, it was just my beginning. And that's the kind of karma you can't plan for. You just have to earn it. So that's my story. The one I never thought I'd have to tell. The one I definitely never thought I'd live through. But here we are. And now I want to hear from you. Have you ever been betrayed by the people you thought would protect you? Have you ever had to choose between staying silent and fighting back? Drop a comment below and tell me, what would you have done in my situation? Would you have confronted them? Or would you have played the long game like I did? And honestly, do you think I went too far? Or do you think they got exactly what they deserved? I want to know your story, your truth, because I guarantee someone reading this right now is sitting with their own secret group chat, their own exclusion, their own moment of shocking betrayal. And maybe, just maybe, hearing that they're not alone will give them the courage to reclaim their dignity too. If this resonated with you, if it made you feel something, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because I'm not done telling stories like this. Stories about family drama, backstabbing, infidelity, revenge, and the kind of justice that doesn't come from a courtroom. It comes from refusing to be erased. There's more where this came from, and trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next. So subscribe, comment, and let's keep this conversation going, because your voice matters, and your story, it deserves to be heard.